Hi, Ting Ting. It's so wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for coming on to the Everyday Mystic.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for coming on. I'm so happy that our mutual friend Cal introduced us. I listened to you on his podcast and I was like, oh, I love this woman. I love her energy. I loved at least a bit of the story that I heard of yours. And then I watched you because you have this movement method that you created, which we'll get into and we'll talk all about. But when I did a little research on you and watched you, I was like, oh, she's like fully embodying spirit. And those are the people that I love talking to because, it's not just people who are practitioners. This is the everyday mystic. And the intention behind it is that uh, we can hear from people of all walks of life. It could be an accountant. It's very mystical. It could be, somebody who is not at all working in this space, but who carries spirit so beautifully within them. And you're obviously a bit of both, where you carry spirit so beautifully within you, but then you've also created and you work in this space too. So before we get into all the juiciness of your method and the work, tell us a little bit about you. Where did your journey begin? And by journey I mean really journey into your true self and your spiritual nature.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's such a it is quite a journey, and I don't think I was ever carrying spirit so deeply as I'm doing now, and it's a deepening into that. But I mean, I came from China. I grew up in poverty with my parents both being farmers, and then coming to America and that search for right for the life, right, that quote unquote beautiful golden stairway to wherever it is, that abundance. And from that place, it was like this feeling this unworthiness throughout my entire life. And so it was that journey of like, okay, well, where do I belong? Where do I fit in? Where am I accepted? And I went from being in being in the office, being in fashion design, working a 9 to 5 job, being very, very unhappy, disconnected, and finding my value from things, and finding my value of like, oh, well, if I buy this bag or this purse or these shoes, then I'm going to be more accepted, then I'll have status. And it was a very obviously unfulfilling experience. And it led me to a really deep depression, which carried me out of New York City. I was living in New York City, and afterwards, it was like one day I decided to go on a bike ride. I decided to bike all the way to the beach, which is about a 2.5 hour bike
Wow,
ride.
yeah.
I was like, I'm on this journey. I don't know where I'm going, but I want to go to the ocean because I hadn't seen nature in so long. I mean, yes, there's Central Park, but it's still surrounded by buildings. It's not really, you're not really immersed in it. And finally, when I got down to the beach, um, I started crying because I was so disconnected from nature. I was so disconnected from my own nature.
Mm.
And it was this profound experience of just watching the waves and watching the breeze blow through the trees and not having anything around, where it was that moment of like, this isn't the right direction that I'm going in my life. Like, I'm obviously not happy. I don't feel, I'm very depressed. I don't feel connected to the people I'm around. And being in bars and being in all those places wasn't serving me. So I packed all my stuff. I quit my job that had, 401k and all of these bonuses and all of this guarantee, right? To literally put everything in a suitcase, travel in a car, and I was headed to San Francisco, but I ended up stopping in all these different places. I stopped in North Carolina, was my first stop, and that's where it was like the ocean, the waves. There was a huge yoga community, and then I immersed into yoga, and that began my sort of path back to myself. And that's where it started.
To stay in, you weren't intending to stay in North Carolina, but you ended up there for a while.
Yeah, yeah. And I just fell in love with it. It was the cobblestone streets and the Spanish moss, and just like the the slowness of it and the sweetness of it. It was like there was a huge humidity, and it felt like nice and like it just felt like nice and dewy,
Yeah.
and everyone loved going to the ocean, and there was fresh seafood, and I was like, this is my jam right now.
Right. Feeding the soul, literally,
Yeah.
figuratively, all of that. Oh, I found that too because I grew up in the Northeast, and then we lived in the Northwest for a long time, and I also lived in LA area and Southern California for many, many years. But I think having spent so much time in the North, coming to the Southeast corner of the United States, I had a very similar experience of just the slowing down because obviously LA area, SoCal, there's a pace there too. It's not quite New York pace, but I mean, there's a heavy pace, especially depending on what kind of industry you're in. And coming to the Southeast felt so relaxing as well, like just relaxing into a slower pace and a calmer existence. And just I had a very similar experience of just loving, like soaking up the humidity and the dewiness. I live in Arkansas now, and this last summer I was like, oh, it's like a free sauna when you're outside. I'm just like, oh, I'm just like getting all of this incredible detoxing, and it feels really good. The kind of the perspiration and that cycle, you feel it happening in your
Yeah,
body.
yeah. It's and and then after North Carolina, I end up moving to Telluride, Colorado, which is
Mm.
the complete opposite. But it
Yeah.
was also like very soul nurturing, and I realized how much I love just essentially it doesn't matter where it is or what environment. I was like, I just love being in nature. And then I was in the mountains. I was high up in this high altitude, and just everything was just pure snow and white, gorgeous. And there was basically no humidity, but there was all this beautiful powder. Like it's like, that journey led me to Portland, Oregon,
Mm.
where I decided then to take the leap of faith and go to Bali, and start in my yoga teacher training. And they ended up wanting me to become a teacher. And then my yoga teacher training ended up being this whole meditation retreats. And I ended up leading meditation retreats as well as teacher trainings. And then my journey finally landed me in LA, which I am currently at right now.
Mm. Now, do you feel like spirit was really guiding you to all these places? Because, like you said, you left New York not with the intention of staying in North Carolina, but obviously something spoke to you there. The nature spoke to you, it sounds like, and the environment. But was there a voice within? Was there, do you believe that there was a larger magnetic or spiritual pull to each of these places?
For sure, definitely. There was there was opportunity, of course, which when opportunity arises, you take it.
Yeah.
And then also, I was really just following my happiness, where
Mm.
I felt really happy. And after a while, being in North Carolina, I was starting to feel like this wasn't the place I wanted to really land, and that there was the journey was meant to continue. And so I always follow that sort of that longing. And when I left New York, it really started hitting me. Like I was getting waves, or even just driving down the highway, I just started bawling into tears because I was realizing how much I wasn't following myself and wasn't
Yeah.
trusting my intuition and was just shutting everything down. And so that leap of faith into the unknown was that first step of like, okay, I'm really going to trust my intuition now. And if you were to tell me 10 years ago that, hey, Ting Ting, you founded your own movement form and now it's being practiced internationally around the world, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Movement form? I just way out of left field. But that's what was birthed because I kept following those hits
Yeah.
of like, hey, like that spark of something that just magical is about to happen. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I love this feeling. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how I'm
Mm.
going to do it. I don't know if I even have enough money to do it, but I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah. What was it that allowed you? I mean, was it the hitting of kind of quote unquote rock bottom that got you moving? Or like what do you really attribute to getting you moving in this way? Because it takes a lot of courage, and there's a lot of people who get these little taps and the whispers of like, you're unhappy, this kind of sucks, what are you doing? But they don't move, they don't go anywhere, they don't do anything. So
Yeah.
what do you attribute that to for yourself?
Um, it's this feeling of wanting to escape frustration, or wanting to escape, or having this feeling like I'm not free, like I'm chained down by something that I don't want. Almost as if you were like carrying this like extra bag and you're like, why do I have this bag with me? I don't want this bag. And so it's like whenever I start to feel like, oh, this is this extra weight, that's when I know that something has to shift.
Mm,
Especially with, work, and I want everything in my life to feel like I really love it. Like whether it's my job, whether it's a partner, whether it's my friends, whether it's a place I live, I want to feel in all areas of my life that I'm loving everything. And if I'm not
mhm,
loving everything, then that thing has to go, or
mhm.
I have to shift.
Yeah. Have you run into something that you haven't loved, but I guess the relationship with it changed? Maybe not like so much a jettisoning, but that you just had, that you had this opportunity, this invitation to like shift the relationship with it.
I mean, definitely relationships for sure in them of themselves, like partnerships and stuff, have shifted where it was a beautiful lesson, right? It was a beautiful journey. And then I'm going here, right? And then this person's either staying right there or they're going this way. And it's like, you know what? Our journey, it was beautiful and it's over and I have to keep going. Um, and with speaking of work, I was in, at that point, the yoga industry for so long, and I felt so, my identity and ego was so attached to me being a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher. And in some ways I am still, that's still a part of me. But when I came to Los Angeles, this is when the Guanjing started to download.
Mm,
And it was funny because the universe just literally shut all the doors and pathways for me continuing on the path of yoga. I've never had that happen to me ever. It was hilarious how much
wow.
the universe was like, no, like any yoga teaching job, nope. Any meditation job, no. Any clients coming in for yoga, no. And it never happened to me before ever. So
Wow.
I was like, what is going on? I'm freaking out. My bank account's going do 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 do, especially in Los Angeles, just like an apple costs $5. And I was like, what is going on? Like I thought this is what I meant to do. And I was so attached to this is what I meant to do.
Yeah.
And I started becoming incredibly depressed. I started to freak out and try to look for other jobs, even waitressing jobs, hostessing job. And it was just like, no, sorry, we're not picking you. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm at this point right now where my ego is completely being destroyed. I have nothing except mounting amounts of frustration and anxiety and pressure. Um, and that got me into my second Great Depression, um, and just sat there. And what it gifted me was all of this time to let this new movement unravel, because without all of this pressure and tension and frustration and anxiety, that movement couldn't have been birthed. So I end up moving right in this way to eventually allow all of that to release. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I was unintentionally starting to create this movement form.
Wow. Yes. So I think that's a beautiful thing to bring up. And as far as the tension that builds, I always imagine it like, what may have happened before the Big Bang, if the Big Bang is real, or like that there's this tremendous amount of potential, right, stored, but it has to like condense into this pressure cooker situation before it can like explode into creation. and
Mm,
into beauty and that release. But there seems to be this always this dance of and between those two polarities, really, right? That we're going
mhm,
between that, the yin and yang, and going between that, those states. And accepting that, I think, is a really beautiful and important thing in life, that those times in your life aren't looked at as moments of failure or looked at as bad, quote unquote, bad times, right? They were like necessary
mm,
times of pre-birth and gestation and all of this. And I think when people don't get into a state of releasing what's meant to come out during, or from those stages, I think that's when we can create a lot of disease and
mhm,
disharmony, right? In the body.
mhm.
So you let it out, sister. You were on, I think I remember from your podcast with Cal, you were on a beach and you just started to move in this way and just start to let it out. Share that with us, what that was
Yeah,
like.
yeah, it's funny because Um, I first started practicing the movement just by myself in front of some oak trees, like where I was living, and I was blessed enough to be in Topanga. And I didn't, all avenues for yoga shut down, and even my desire to practice the yogic postures or meditate just completely diminished. And I didn't know really what I wanted to do. And so I reconnected with my breath and was like, okay, just connect with your breath. Like, just be present to how the breath is moving through the body. And then I was allowing the breath to sort of like animate my body. And then I was letting the breath just do whatever it wanted to do with my body. And before I knew it, I was doing all of these movements. And afterwards, I felt this sense of relief. But I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing because I didn't record myself. I didn't see. And I went into this other space. And afterwards, the first time this happened, I felt so much like of a relief. I felt so much trust in the timing of things. I felt so much presence and more deeply connected to my intuition and that loving voice rather than that like that mean mean voice, that like you're not
Mhm,
worthy. This is your crap. Like no one wants you. And more of like trust. It's okay. Everything's gonna come. Just be patient.
mhm,
And so I was like, okay, well, I feel better now. So maybe I should try this again. That's when I started practicing by the ocean or at the park. And when I started practicing in public spaces, at this point, I was so used to teaching yoga and doing things with my body in public that it was no big deal. Like I didn't care if people were watching me or not or what I was doing.
yeah,
And I closed my eyes and I went into this other space again, and especially with the waves and the sound of the birds and the sound of the ocean, it was just such an easy route to get into that place. And so by the time I was finished, I opened my eyes and all of these people were standing around every single time. It was crazy. Literally every time I went down the ocean or the park, every time I did this, I opened my eyes when I was done and I had people looking at me and being like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing? That looks so amazing. I want to try this. Like, what is it called? Is it yoga? Is it qigong? Is it tai chi?" And I just said, "I have no idea what I'm doing." But apparently the universe is speaking to me very loudly that I need to be sharing this. And so it was sort of like a working from sort of backwards. And I started recording myself and be like, okay, well, what is it that I'm actually doing? Because I don't know. And so when I started recording myself, I started realizing, oh, I'm doing these movements all the time and these movements. And when I'm doing this circular shape, I'm imagining that my frustration is releasing. And when I'm doing this, imagining that I'm washing myself with the ocean water. And
mm,
I realized, oh, these are meditative movements that I can just teach people in very simple steps. And so that's sort of how it started to come into form.
mm. I love how organic and just how channeled that was, right? I mean, like you said, it downloaded into you and personally relieved you. So as you did it, what was happening in you, as far as, because you said you were in a state of depression and kind of fear and loss. So what was going on in your own body as you were moving?
I was it was interesting when this first started coming through, it very much felt like spirit was entering into my body and cleansing all of the negative thought patterns and cleansing all of the trauma from my body. And I was allowing it to enter my body to do that. And so when this was happening and I was feeling it, it just felt like waves of relief and waves of kindness and just waves of expansive potential. Um,
Mhm.
and after I finished, I it was embodied into me, right? You embody that because you were letting it go through you. So then afterwards, you have that feeling of just beautiful surrender into the trust of the universal flow, into the trust of the spirit, into the trust of your own spirit. Um,
Mhm.
and sort of that was, yeah, that was what I was feeling.
Mm. I love that you allowed allowed it to all happen without any care, that of what you were doing, what you might look like. And obviously you had a healthy relationship with your ego in that respect, that you could just be in that state in the first place. Because I think a lot of people, first and foremost are um, uncomfortable just in general being looked at or watched. So it's like you had already mastered that to some degree, right? With all of the yoga work, and then you were ripe and open, right? The universe picked you. They were like, okay, she's a channel for this.
Well, I think I was
She's
destroyed. So I was like, I don't even care. Like people can think I'm crazy. I don't care at this point.
yeah, yeah. So that's a great, I think it's a great message to everybody. It's like you're what could look like the worst case scenario in your life, or the worst state of being in your life. It could be the biggest, and usually is the biggest invitation to the biggest opening in your life, to what's really meant to come through for you, and meant to be uh, how you're living. And yours, I mean, such a living example of that. And the movement aspect too of allowing spirit to come through is another important thing, because I think, we talk in these spaces a lot about spirit, and about being soul led, and allowing your the energy of all that is to enter your body. And you can read about it, you can talk about it, you can talk to others about it, you can think about it, but until you actually allow it to move through and enter you, essentially, it doesn't become you, like you said. So movement is such an important and invaluable practice or aspect to
Mhm,
spiritual life.
mhm,
Just sitting there, I mean, certainly you can sit there and allow energy to move through you too. You don't have to always be moving, but I think it's, true masters that can just sit and allow energy to fully move and enter through them.
mhm.
Most of us, I think, need to and are helped and served, right? By
Yeah.
actually moving and actually doing breathing and things that are opening up our physical channels. How would you describe that as far as what the movements do on a physical
Mhm,
level to allow spirit energy to move in?
mhm. Well, there's so many things that I wanted to touch upon as you were talking about
Yeah,
the
feel free to
different
go
kinds
back.
and the spirit. So I'll go back to what's physically happening, but it's all about being able to integrate into life. Like, of course, there's all these stories like, oh, you have to go to the mountaintop and be in complete solitude and meditate for 12 hours a day, and then you will ascend and you will be enlightened, right? But for me, we are human, and I hear so many people being like, I'm just pure consciousness. Yes, and you are still in a human body, you know?
Right.
And so how do we have the most capability? How can we connect to our most full potential? By accepting our human qualities as well as our higher consciousness. And how do we do that? By integrating the two of them and utilizing both polar opposites so that you can communicate and connect and ascend, not only in your spiritual life but also in the material life. It's so, so important. So when I visualize and use Guanjing and the movements, it's so that I can allow the spirit to guide me while life is in motion, because life is constantly in motion. I mean, people try to separate themselves, but you go to a sensory deprivation tank, and what are you stuck with? The noise of the water in your ear, and like, oh, you're a little, and like, there's always going to be something that's going to annoy you, right? Or there's always going to be something else because you
Yeah.
cannot separate. So, if meditation is all about oneness, then connecting to our body, our breath, our emotions, our mind, our spirit as that oneness is, for me, the ultimate goal. Um, and so when we talk about what's happening with the movements, what's happening during the practice of Guanjing is allowing the body's unconscious mind. In a lot of Eastern philosophy, that's what it's believed. And also now science is now realizing it, right? So if the body's the unconscious mind, then trauma is stored in different parts of the body. And I've witnessed, even when I was teaching at these yoga teacher trainings, people have profound releases just because they stretched their thigh or just because they went into a back bend and opened their heart. And they just burst into tears because finally they're allowing themselves to physically open enough, and not just physically open. Yes, you can stretch at the gym, right? But where's your mind? Where's your breath? So when you open your body and then you direct your mind and your awareness and send your breath, you can finally release whatever is held in that space. I mean, so many people have tension in their shoulders or their pelvis, and they're constantly going like this, like physically trying to move it, but their mind is somewhere else. And so when we direct it and orchestrate it into one dance, it has to be a dance, the harmonization of all these elements together. It begins to release, and then what does that create? That creates space. It creates space in the body, it creates space in our mind, it creates space in our breath to invite spirit to come through, to invite intuition to speak to you. And so from that space, we're dancing with the elements, we're dancing with the movements, and then we're allowing ourselves to be part of the dance rather than just watching the dance. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
difference.
Yeah, you're right. You're becoming it rather than even just doing it, right? What's
Yeah.
shifted for you in your own intuition, maybe psychic senses, and connection to the divine through the practice?
Mm, trusting myself so much more, trusting my yeses and nos. And everyone has the different constitutions, right? Some people need to wait. Some people have I think this is all kind of like a human design stuff. But for
Yeah,
me,
what's your human
my human
design
side, I
energy?
have I'm a generator, which is not
Good.
surprising. I can go,
Yeah.
go, go. um, and my sacral is fixed, so it's that instantaneous, like you know your yeses and nos. And for so long, I've always been questioning it. And like, of course, it's like the traumas of wanting to people please and wanting to be accepted, and now I don't. It's not that I don't care if I'm not accepted or whatever it is, but I honor what I need and I honor what my body is telling me instead of pushing it down and shoving it away and separating it and being like, oh, well, and operating from that place of fear. I think that one of my favorite questions whenever I make big decisions in my life or whenever I'm in doubt of anything is, am I making this decision based on a place of love and expansion or based on fear? Because if we're
Hmm.
operating from fear, then the operation system is going to shut you off from your intuition. But when we're operating from love and expansion, we're operating from the place of our heart. And from our heart, all of the answers to life will be answered. I mean, sometimes even the most ridiculous stuff. I'll give you a quick story because it's funny. I've been living in Hawaii for a long time, and actually it was during COVID. So my partner and I, we decided just to go for 3 weeks, and 3 weeks ended up being months because I'm like, please, let's stay longer, let's stay longer. And so finally he goes, darling, we have to go back to LA. And he's like, I'm gonna go back. You're gonna follow me, right? And I'm like, okay, yes. So I'm like, let me stay 3 more days. I want to like have a closing ceremony for being in Hawaii. We were at Maui, and the last day I'm supposed to take a red eye to go back to Los Angeles. I was totally accepting it, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have like this one last surf. And so I go to the ocean and I see this cute puppy. And I go, oh my God, this is the cutest puppy. I start playing with it and I'm starting to fall in love with this dog. And everyone's like, whose does this dog belong to? Like, he doesn't, who's his owner, you know? And
Mm.
finally, this homeless man comes up. He's living at this man living out of his car. His car is trashed. And he goes, oh, this is my dog. He's always so bad. He's always running away. And I'm thinking, well, I'd probably be running away from you too if you were my owner. And then all for some reason, all reason left my brain, and I just was fully so deeply connected to my heart. And I go, what if I take him off your hands for you? Thinking like all reason, I'm supposed to leave on a red eye. Like I can't be taking care of a dog. I travel so much. And he goes, yeah, that'd be great. And literally hands me his leash, hands me his dog food, and just goes. And so I'm at the beach with this dog. And I'm like, oh my God, Ting, what did you just get yourself into? But it was just so hard. And I just looked at him and I was like, this is my little guardian. This is my sweetheart. Like, and so that all of that logic, and now, you know, he's sleeping behind me right now. And I'm so in love with him. And he's my little, like, he's my angel. I can't imagine life without him. And that's when you know you're operating because you just trust. You just trust it'll all work out. And it all worked out. I ended up, you know, going back to LA really quickly. My landlord in Hawaii was like, I'll watch him, but you come back. So I got a crate, came back, got him, and brought him back.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, like what a true following your heart story to end up with, because dogs are, I mean, so much heart, right? They are all heart. Oh, I see him back there peeking up.
Yeah,
He's right behind you. Yeah.
there he is. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah.
Looking out the window. Yeah.
Oh, there
Yeah.
he is. Oh, we see you. Oh, he's beautiful.
Oh, now he's gonna. There he is.
Oh, now we get to all experience him. Look at him.
I
Oh,
mean,
was
isn't he
he?
just angel? He's
He
such an angel.
is. He is an angel. Oh, so you're going to be traveling again soonish, right? To for another. Well, I know you travel a lot, so you kind of consider, is LA like a home base, and then you go off from there, come back, go off and come back. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I do really, and I really enjoy the energy of Los Angeles. I mean, I'm in Topanga, so I'm in more of the nature, but I love
Yeah.
the people here. There's such a great community of just inspiring entrepreneurs who all are following their hearts, all are following the trust, their dream, and really just committing and devoting themselves so fully in whatever they believe in. You know, I just love it from the wide variety of people, from everyone from people making specialty chocolates to people who are in Chinese medicine to people who are working on oils and ting hearts that they know that they will succeed and be successful, and they are, they're thriving. So it's
Yeah,
good
I
to feel
love.
that for you.
Oh, I so love that about Los Angeles. My mom moved there when I was 14. And so I
Wow.
started, and I had spent time there my childhood because, you know, she has her side of the family was there. And then when she moved, I spent a lot of time there and it became a second home. And then I went to college out there, and it always felt so freeing to me. You know,
Mhm.
I felt a sense of not only possibility, but that of that creative energy of everything that you just described, there's so much of that there. And for people who just see LA in one way, just see maybe the superficiality or just the Hollywood, um, they haven't really gotten the chance yet to experience it on an energetic level because it is so generative. It is just like popping there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love it there too. And you're in a beautiful part, certainly in Topanga Canyon. It's gorgeous there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're there now, but I know you are leaving on a very big, both from a maybe distance in time, but also maybe from a symbolic sense
Mm,
too. Pretty
yeah.
big trip in a couple months. You want to talk a
Yes,
little bit
yes.
about that?
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm prepared. All of my extra time is devoted to preparing for this journey. So I am headed to the Wudang Mountains in China, and I haven't been back to China since I left when I was 5. So this is a really big moment in my life. And I'm headed there to study at the Wudang Temple space with the Grand Master. I'm going to be studying Wushu and Kung Fu Fan and horse. Me, I'm like, go all in or not at all. And so it's going to be 12-hour days, waking up sunrise with Qigong, then studying the specific martial arts, and then, with breaks in between, and then more Qigong during sunset. And I'm really, really excited to go back, especially to such a beautiful part of China. I don't remember, I've never been to those parts of China when I was younger. I was only in the cities. And so to go back and to witness that ancient wisdom and that ancient magic and the untouched landscapes, I'm very, very excited. And so I've been practicing my Chinese again, going, and I wake up every morning and I have my little tea ceremony. I have a little bit of aged pu'er, and I have this on this app that allows you to practice Chinese. And so I've been
Yeah.
practicing every morning while I'm pouring my tea, and then also, studying. It's so funny. So I have to tell you this other really interesting story. So 4 years ago, I get Gaia TV. And I'm looking at stuff and I'm putting like, oh, watch for later. I have a few things for watch for later, right? I don't look at it again. And then just a few weeks ago, I'm looking at my watch for laters and I go, oh, this thing about chi. And so I click it and it's about the school that I'm going to.
Oh, wow. That's
It's
amazing.
crazy. I'm like, wait, so
The seed was
my,
planted way back then.
yeah, like my past self was preparing my future self to go to go to this temple. Is literally about the exact school, about the mountain, about the teachers. And I was like, this is insane. I can't believe that there was a documentary about this. And I didn't even realize it was a documentary about Wudang because it just said, learn, something about chi energy.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, this is crazy right now. And then of course, once your mind starts to focus on something, it starts showing up in different ways. And so then this other Chinese documentary came up and it was about ancient Chinese megaliths. And essentially, they found these underground caves that they just discovered in 1991 that equates to like finding, the Great Pyramids in Egypt. And it's these massive caves that have been they have no idea how these people carved it because it's so high with giant sculptures of dragons and ascended masters
Wow.
they believe it's maybe not by something human because they don't understand where the stone came from. It's not the stone from the local area, and the size of it is a megalith. And so I'm really excited. After the training, I'm headed down there to see these caves and
Oh,
connect with that energy. So yeah,
incredible.
that's the plan.
Amazing. Oh, well, what a life shifting, which obviously the seed was planted 4 years ago when or maybe even before then when when you picked that documentary, but certainly you have shifted your path to this return. And the amount, I mean, I can just like feel it in my body, the kind of wisdom and insight and things that you will experience. What's your hope for what you will experience? Is this something that's very personal for you? Or are you hoping that, like the Guanjing Method, that you will incorporate it in some way for humanity?
For sure. I mean, I hope that I come out of there like crouching tiger, hidden dragon, for sure. But also, just to send to share the wisdom, because not everyone can take off work for months at a time to travel all the way to China to go through the whole process of getting the Chinese visa was quite a journey for me. And to devote all that time. And so my hope is to bring that wisdom back to the people who are drowning in their lives, the people who, have children and maybe they don't have a very sustaining job, and maybe they're dealing with a lot of health ailments. And my hope is to allow ourselves and give everyone the opportunity to have that wellness and to take the time and move their bodies, and not only for themselves and for their families, but also for the animals and for the planet and for Mother Earth, because we're at such a beautiful pinnacle point where more and more people are realizing that the way that we've been living is not sustainable, is not healthy. The foods that we're eating have been sprayed with the poisons, and the way that we're treating each other, the way that we're treating the animals is not from a place of love. And so now that more and more people are maybe not realizing the deep depths of why and who, but maybe they're realizing that they're just unhealthy and unhappy, then having more routes of practices to bring them back to feeling their inner power, their heart, their soul, is one step closer. And I hope that I'm a part of that step.
Mm. Yeah, I no doubt believe you will be, and the going and spending that time with that intention will make it so
Yeah, yeah.
that you will, yeah. And I think it's so wonderful too that um, for you to sort of act as a translator as well, not a language so much, but an energetic translator of these ancient movements that you've obviously adapted and I know you'll be learning very traditional
Mhm.
things, but maybe there will end up being some adaptations that come through you.
Mhm.
So it's like being a translator in that way for uh, the people of now and the people of the West, and, people who are, like you said, not necessarily connected to this energy in such a such a close way as you might be, and to be able to bridge that for people is so beautiful. And I think a big part of those of us on the spiritual journey and living in the mystical realms, we're operating here like we talked about earlier, right, in our bodies. We've got a
Yeah.
body. We're solidly grounded in that, but we are also operating in these mystical realms and communicating there, and getting and gaining information from there, and shifting consciousness and timelines and all sorts of things through that I guess expansive way of being,
Mhm.
so that we can bridge it, I believe, to others who are ready to take the walk over the bridge. It's like I always see myself as like, oh, I put the bridge out. It's kind of like putting out the lantern, and then whoever is attracted to that is the one who's ready for that step and the one who's ready for that walk.
Yeah.
And the more of us that are doing that, because we're living in our own truth and we're living in that place of where, like you said, you know what? I am going to let this all come through me. There can't be any other way. I have to let it come through me. And it's altered you, and it's projected you forward, and you've become a channel, for others. Do
Mm.
you see yourself in that way, that you are a channel for?
It's so funny. I have a friend who she I have a lot of friends who are channels, and we had a session, and we were talking about this, and she goes, you are a channel, you're a medium, and I laugh because I always think, well, I can't, like, for me, I don't hear voices, or I don't see into the future or anything, but I feel energy. I can tell without even being close to someone if they're in pain, or if they are heartbroken, or I just feel that emotions from people very deeply. And she said, but and I agree with her. When I channel, I'm not channeling a particular person. Some people are like channeling saints, or channeling an angel, or maybe an alien. For me, I feel that it's just light. I feel like there's
Mhm,
light coming through, and I'm just allowing the light to use my body to move and dance.
mm,
And I feel when I'm moving, then I'm directing and projecting that light out in these spiraling circular shapes. Um, which that's what I'm teaching people, to connect to their own light, and to connect to that sense of what is that? What is the word? Cohesion with the natural waveform of the
mhm,
universal flow. Because when we are in distrust, when we're frustrated, when we're angry, when we're stuck in those more negative behavior patterns, right, we're in disharmony, and we're
mm,
dysregulated. And even when you think about sacred geometry in terms of like this flower life, or when the structure of water, and when we send love to that water, right, and it becomes this beautiful snowflake when it's frozen, that's similar to the cells of our own body. When we connect with spiraling circular shapes and that universal flow, we become more structured to be in harmony with life, rather than in disharmony with life. And so this is what I'm teaching people, and this is actually what my new course coming out is about. It's called The Sacred Geometry of Qi. That's available to
mm.
all of the members in the online community. And I would love to gift your listeners with a free class. I'll send you
Mm,
a link for that.
beautiful.
But yeah, that's what it's all about, is connecting to that light.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that we're talking about this, because, the intention of this podcast is, my hope is that more people see themselves as channels, and as mediums, and as gifted with the voice of spirit,
Mm,
and understand themselves as soul, and connected to this oneness,
mm,
and that has all of its own preconceived notions, just like you were saying, like, oh, I'm not a channel because I don't hear, I'm not, speaking in tongues with some dead relative coming through me. There can be, within this space, a lot of preconceived notions of what something is, because we're not brought up this way. Most of us
yeah.
are kept away from this kind of woo woo stuff. And the woo woo, to me, is who we really are, is what we really are. And reminding people, like, we all are channeling energy. We are all bringing in, or at least have the capability to
Hmm.
bring this in. And even for those who I would say, don't feel like they have the capability, presuming you're not completely shut down in your physical body, uh, we are bringing in information. Everyone's had some type of intuitive hit. I mean, even if it's just like, oh yeah, I thought of, this person, and then, I got an email from them, or whatever. whatever little minor intuitive hit. So I like reminding people of this, that
Mhm.
we all have not only this capability, but this is who we really are. We are
Mhm.
really all capable and meant to be connected to this vast realm of information and energy, and this collective wisdom that we
Mhm. Yeah,
can
and
then move
intuition,
through us.
yeah, and intuition's, it's a muscle. Just like any other
Yeah.
muscle in our body, the more we work and use that muscle, then we get to see the benefits of it. So, just I mean, it's interesting like how we raise children. Everyone's like, "Oh, let them play with the iPad or whatever." And for me, it's like if I ever have children, I would love that. My main goal would be to build their intuition and to just say, okay, I trust your nose. I trust your yeses, instead of saying, oh, don't do that. Oh, that's dangerous. Right. And that child isn't getting even the chance to begin to develop that relationship with their own intuition, even from a very young age. We always think that we know best. We're always trying to control other people. And so in a beautiful world, I see that we're all lovingly cultivating each other's intuition, because we all have the ability, just like you said, we do have all have the ability to be psychic and channels. It's not like it's a special quality. It's more that some people have developed it way more than
Mhm.
other people.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, and then why have it? Let's talk about that for a moment. Why want it? Why have it? I mean, I have my own reasons for that. What for you is, what kind of quality of life and benefits do you being more connected to your intuition and this inner knowing and this flow, what does it do for you? And, from a
Mhm.
practical sense, what does it
Yeah.
provide
I
for
mean, from
you?
a very practical sense, it's just allowing me to be more happy. It's allowing me to find more freedom. It's allowing me to become more expansive and trust in my own potential for what I'm contributing in life and to others. If I wasn't following my intuition, I mean, I see the timeline of me still being in New York City and still trying to climb up the corporate ladder and being burnt out and being super depressed and maybe having some sort of eating disorder or something like that,
Mhm.
whereas when we trust our intuition, it's always going to guide us. It's always going to guide us. And my friend said something really powerful. He said, what decisions would you make if you knew that your prosperity was inevitable? If your success was inevitable, like what choices would you make? Would you still be making the same choices? And that's similar to the question, are you choosing from love or fear? And the more that we choose from love, the more that we choose from the fact that our success and our prosperity will be inevitable, then we are sending that message out to the universe that we trust our intuition. And that the universe responds and goes, okay, well, I'll give you more of that, right? Whereas if we weren't, then the universe would be, well, I'll give you more of this fear because apparently you're asking for it.
That's what
Um,
you want. Yeah.
yeah, and of course we have to have difficult situations and challenges and stuff that tests ourselves, and those difficulties are necessary to put us into that timeline of where we need to go, And so sometimes, yes, like we want to make decisions from a place of love, but maybe something really crazy happens or devastating happens or, tragedy, heartbreak, whatever it is. But always knowing that it's for the greater good will help you get past it, instead of being stuck and a prisoner to that trauma.
Mhm. Yeah. And what would be your best piece of advice for when you are feeling stuck, when you're in that place of lowest of low and just feeling like stuck there?
Mm,
What would you advise someone to do?
I would say just dance with it. I would say,
Mm,
that's what I
yeah.
did. Just dance with, just move it. it's okay. You're not going to be stuck forever, but you need to move the energy instead of feeling like you're in a stuck place. You still have the freedom. If you're listening to this podcast, you're not stuck, like you have some sort of gateway of freedom and safety in your body. You're not in a war right now, right? You are here and you're able to move your body and you're in a safe space to move your body. So move the body, move with your breath, like allow the energy to move instead of becoming more and more stuck in the body.
Yeah.
And that's the first step. And that's what Guanjing teaches you is how to, if you don't have a direction of like, I don't really know what to do, check out that free class. It has so many amazing movements. It teaches you how to breathe. It teaches you how to do the flow, and it gives you a sequence. And so
Mm.
that's what I would say.
Beautiful place to start for anybody. And I'm so grateful for you to share that free class with the listeners. We'll put all your links in the show notes so that people can access that and find out more about you and the method and follow your journey, because you're going to go and you're going to come back with so much more after your return from China. And we already talked about this, of you coming back onto the podcast after you've gone on that journey, so that you
Yeah.
can share all the juicy downloads with us, from, straight from the mountain. So we'll look forward to that when that happens. Thank you so much, Ting Ting, for sharing
Thank
time with
you
us
so
and
much.
being here.
Yes, thank you. It was wonderful speaking, and it's an honor to be here.
I don't know what's going on with this. It says we are at 24 minutes, but we're totally not. We're at,
Oh,
just
an
an
hour?
hour. Yeah, on here, I don't know. So I am just like fingers crossed that it
Oh,
captured everything. I'm not sure why it says that down in the on the little recording thing.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't. Do you see that on your end where it
And
says?
no, I don't see anything on my end. It just says recording.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It just says we're at 24 minutes, 6 seconds. I'm like, I was looking at that earlier. I'm like, what's going on with time here? Because I feel like we've been talking for a while and it was saying like 13 minutes. And I'm like, this is strange. So I'm going to stop it and then hopefully it's recording, but don't go off yet because it's still uploading. Oh
Okay.
no. And so now that just disappeared. Hmm.
Oh no. Oh, Mercury in retrograde, man. It's been a real thing.
Yeah, it's coming in and just keeping us on our toes here. The little button went gray for me to actually stop the recording. So that's so weird. And when it comes back on, do you have a little bit more time
It's fine.
to
Mhm.
hang? Okay.
Yeah.
Because, when, I have to stop it and then it has to 100%
Oh,
upload
yeah,
before
yeah,
you can log out. And for
yeah. No
some reason,
problem.
it's not letting me stop it. It just wants us to keep going.
Yeah, well, it's got to
Universe is like,
record.
you're not done.
That's
Say that again.
Hello?
Did I lose you? Now I can't hear you. Are you still there? Oh,
Little bear, let's get off. Come on, honey. Hello?
hi.
What just happened?
It said I think I lost my internet connection and it stopped.
Oh,
So now we're recording a new thing now. So,